All right, I think we're live. Welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great Sunday here. May the 4th be with you, and thanks so much for stopping by. So, like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's a link in the description to join in and get that priority answering. And so, I see we have Brian, Kevin, Lonswath, Dylan, Kyle, Vishal, Kibbledog, B. Mitchell, Wheatman, Raphael, Danny, and Stratus. Thanks so much for stopping by, everyone. I really appreciate it. So let me see. Brian says the cars I spotted this week were a C8 Corvette and a Ferrari. Very nice. And Kevin says good evening there. And Lansmouth says good evening. Sadly, no spots this week. Well, my spots this week, I saw one strange one. Danny might appreciate this. I saw a hybrid Chevy Tahoe from the years there. I think it was like 2008 to 2010 or something like that, where they did a hybrid Tahoe. Saw one of those. Saw a either Ford Taurus X or a Ford Freestyle that was done up like the Ghostbusters car. I can't remember, the Ecto, whatever it's called. Someone had made one of those, like all the stuff on the roof, like, fully like legit kind of copy with a modern vehicle, which was funny. And I can't remember if there was any other stuff. I saw a few other odd things I can't think of off the top of my head, but those are mine this week. But Dylan says, hope all is well. Neat spots for a Suzuki Kizashi and an Evo MR. Very nice. And Lansma said, the only spot you could say I had this week was hearing what I believe to be a flat plane crank supercar about a block away from my house, screaming away from a stop sign. Sounds like a Z06 most likely, if it was in fact a supercar. Otherwise, maybe it was just a Shelby that sounded like one. But either way, always good to hear a flat plane crank. And let me see. Michelle also says, what's going on, Matt? Spotted 2 Dodges this week, a Charger EV and an old Stratus. Nice. Yeah, I haven't seen any Charger EVs in the past week, but I haven't seen a bunch pop up. And the other thing that's been popping up a bunch is new X3s, BMW X3s, that new gen version. I knew that they, have gone on sale, but like they are popping up real fast. Like usually like a new car launches, even a mainstream one like that, it takes a little while to like become super popular around here. But that X3, I can count, I don't know, probably 5 of them I've seen just in the past week. So again, the polarizing styling and the weird interior does not seem to be putting off people at all. Let me see. B. Mitchell says up in Minot. That's my not Matt. So the most interesting spot was neat as a pin 1972 or 71 to 72 Chevy C10 CST pickup. Nice. Very cool. There's a couple old pickups around here. I think they're Fords, but there's like one that's like a baby blue with like the stripe going through the middle of it. Very 70s, 80s kind of thing. It's pretty cool. And there's another one that's similar. I can't remember exactly what the color scheme is for the other one, but always fun to see old trucks in nice shape. And Wheatman says, good evening, Matt, and all car enthusiasts here tonight, and good evening to you as well. Raphael says, hello, all. Spot was a Mustang GT500 this morning. I stayed close to it for as long as I could. Sounded amazing. Nice. Very, very nice. And Wheatman says, we need some Ford Bullet and Fiat 500e emojis. All right, I can do that. Yeah, I can yeah, it's super easy to make those now that I'm better at Photoshop. So I can totally make a couple of those. I'm going to note that down here so that I don't forget here with all the good ideas that we always have coming in. So Fiat emoji and bullet. All right. Thanks for the suggestion. I appreciate that. And Danny says, hello. Sadly, sorry, reloaded here. Sadly, our Chevy Bolt has to go into the dealer this week. Saturday night, the car's version of a check engine light came on, which is a car with an explanation point in the middle. Well, hopefully it is all right, because I thought, I'm sure you know more about it than I do, but I thought usually the explanation point kind of thing sometimes was like a battery kind of related thing. So hopefully battery's good on yours and everything's all good there. Let me see. Danny also says the car says service vehicle soon and propulsion power reduced. My dad Ford, normally it does 100 kilowatt, now it only does 80. We need help on what is wrong. Battery's under the warranty. As long as the battery's under warranty, you're good there. I don't imagine it would be an electric motor issue, because electric motors have very little that goes wrong. If anything, I know with like the Mach-E, one of the common failure points with propulsion stuff is that the high voltage junction box that is basically like the pass through from the battery to the motor, that sometimes can basically like fuse itself either open or close, because it's kind of like a switch that is like an on and off switch almost. And sometimes it can get stuck in one position or the other. And I know in the Mach-E, I think they have fixed it since, and it was still a very rare thing, but in certain Mach-E's, if you DC fast charged and then you like immediately floored it away from a fast charger essentially, or very shortly thereafter, that was like overheating that junction box to the point that again it would end up getting stuck one way or the other, and then that caused like full-blown like catastrophic failure kind of thing. But if yours is still drivable, then I don't even think it's that. So yeah, I have no clue what that could be. It's a little harder to diagnose EVs because oftentimes there's no sounds and there's no even sensations really to go off of. So it's a little bit more of a mystery versus, being able to smell certain, odors and say, oh, I know what that is, or hearing certain things. And, those of us that are familiar with enough car failures, I suppose, can kind of spot some of that stuff. It's a little trickier with EVs, but hopefully the, dealer sorts it out. And again, the good news is you're under warranty. So, you shouldn't have any issues, as far as that goes, just an inconvenience, unfortunately, but hopefully it all gets sorted out. But sorry to hear about the bad luck there. And let me see. Also, Sean, thanks so much for being a member for 34 months now, almost 3 years, Sean. Thank you so much. He says, my TC is still at the body shop. I'm in a Soul now, but for the first few days, my rental was a Mirage. What a piece of crap that was. Missed my car. All right, so where is a TFI PW to come in? And he materializes anytime someone says Mirage. But sorry to hear about the rental cars. That's no fun for sure. Hopefully Soul's a little bit of a better experience. At least it's more horsepower. You probably almost double the horsepower of the Mirage there, right? So at least a little bit of an upgrade. I like the Soul. I thought it was pretty cool. It's been a long time since I reviewed one, but I actually have a extended family friend that has one, and actually is on their second one and really likes the Soul. But yeah, sorry to hear about the TC being in the body shop, though. Hope they get it fixed up here soon. Hopefully the parts and all that are readily available, and because I know that's been an issue with a lot of body shops recently. So hopefully that's not the case with you. And let me see. So Strata says, hey, Matt, with what we know about the materials used for the Slate truck, how much do you expect the SUV kit to cost? That's a good question. I mean, if we're working off $27,500, because that's what the price is before the tax credit. It's so hard to say because I mean, it is expensive stuff like airbags. It has airbags. They say seat belts. You don't want to cheap out on seat belts, so I'm sure that's an expensive-ish part. And seat. I mean, I'm guessing it's gonna be a pretty basic seat, but so it's seat, airbags, seat belts. I don't know if they said anything else, but any other trim. I don't think it gives you any kind of carpeting or anything like that. But and then obviously just the roof, thing over top. Obviously, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine it being more, definitely. I'd say under $5,000. Yeah, it's really hard to say what their costs are since everything is so out of the ordinary. I don't know again like how thick the roof is going to be. Is it going to have any sound insulation in it, or is it just literally going to be like a piece of fiberglass, kind of thing? There's a lot of variation there as far as how cheap or how nice you can make that. Obviously, they'll probably be more on the cheaper bare bones side of it, but I just don't know how far they're going to go with that. Same thing goes for the back seat. Is the back seat going to be a Subaru Brat kind of bolt-in backseat for anyone that remembers those from back in the day, or is it going to be an upholstered seat? Is the upholstery thick? Is it thin? So there's a lot of variation there. I would hope that it'd be under $5,000 though, no matter what they do. If it's more than that, I think they're going to have a tougher sell with it. Because then you're getting into some iffy territory pricing wise. Because if you're talking an actual SUV, obviously it's not a Slate, and that has a very cool factor to it. But if you add more than 5 grand onto a Slate EV, that's again 27 and a half, we're talking 32 and a half. You can get an Equinox EV for, I mean, I guess with the tax credit and stuff, it's maybe around 40. But I mean, 40 grand, obviously, $8,000 extra or whatever. But I mean, we're talking heated and cooled seats. We're talking, way more space, way more range, over 300 miles of range, faster charging, all this stuff. So they have to be very careful. I think they have a nice niche for themselves in the bottom end of the market. If they get too ambitious, it's the same thing as Maverick. I think Maverick still sells well, but the appeal is a little bit less nowadays because Maverick, started out at, what was it, 22 or something like that. And now, you can't get a Maverick for basically hardly anything less than 30. And, I just worry that Slate's, might do the same kind of thing. So I think that's the only thing I'd, be a little weary of if I was working for them, but I think hopefully at least to start here, if you're getting one of the early ones, I would say, 5 grand or so is probably my guess, but very good question. And yeah, I'm curious what everyone else thinks about that. And Kyle said, I saw the 2025 Dodge Charger EV RT leases for $299 a month with $299 down on someone's channel. Hopefully the Hurricane 6 models get a great deal too. Yeah, I guess it'll come down to the how those are received. The big thing though with the Charger EV is that it gets the tax credit. The tax credit greatly reduces lease payments. Obviously that was the magic with the Fiat as well. And so I think that is going to be a uniquely electric proposition. I mean, anything EV right now is just getting phenomenal lease deals. I mean, there is people getting, like I think I said, like $600 or $700 leases on Hummers. There's Lucids you can get you can get a Lucid Air for like $600, $500 a month, especially if you're coming out of Tesla. They are hardcore trying to, conquest Tesla people right now. All the EVs are golden deals. You can get a Lyric for $400 a month, no money down. Cadillac Lyric, it's a $60,000 car, even for the base one there, $400 a month. Acura's EDX, those are going for, I think some people are getting those like under 300. I mean, the deals are insane. And actually, I think I've mentioned this in past live streams, but Lease Hacker is a website that they do a really good job of showing what people's actual signed deals were, not just fancy like, oh, here's what's advertised, but like what people are actually getting. And it's inspiring. And that's kind of what inspired me to keep pushing hard on the Fiat to get that cheap. But there's a couple people in the past week I saw that got Charger EVs. Someone got a Scat Pack one for $197 a month. Now that, I think he was like either Chrysler Conquest or Chrysler Loyalty. Another person had like an employee, like family connection that got them an extra discount. So not all these deals are super repeatable, but they're not, if you miss out on 1,000 or 2,000 on an incentive or something, it's not going to drastically change the lease payment, maybe another $50 a month or something. But like there's people, and actually the cheapest one that I saw, someone got an RT Charger. I think it was like $157 a month with like one, and I'm not talking like crazy money down. Like I think they said they actually put $157 down, like first month's payment, that's it. Stupid cheap. And it almost makes me regret the Fiat, except Charger EV insurance seems to be insanely expensive because it's a double whammy. You have bad driver history because, insurance companies just see Charger and they say, uh-oh, that's trouble. And then you say, now it's electric, and they say, uh-oh, double trouble. Now, not only are people wrecking them left and right, but also when they wreck them, they're immediately totaled because, they're EVs and, you breathe on the battery the wrong way and they just want to total them. So that's really the big difference. So be very careful. Anyone who's interested in those, by all means, if you can get a crazy deal, go for it. Just make sure you get an insurance quote first and make sure that insurance quote plus lease payment is still attractive enough to, pull the trigger on that. Because that's obviously the biggest thing. I mean, Fiat, even if the Charger was the same price as the Fiat, I'd be paying double or triple for insurance. And then, the deal part goes out the window. So that's the only thing and I think that's also one of the things that's going up against Dodge is like it's also they're having to battle with that in addition to battling with not a ton of people wanting an electric Charger, and it's why it's creating this perfect storm of dirt cheap leases. So but yeah, they're out there. I mean, if you want to, I mean, it's a lot of car too. I mean, even the RT version is what, like almost 500 horsepower, right? For even $300 a month, if it is that, just insanely cheap. I mean, dollar, performance per dollar, it's really, really impressive. I mean, who knows? Hopefully they're reliable and all this. This is, first gen Stellantis electric stuff. So, there's probably a little bit of a bravery component there that also, I didn't have to worry about with the Fiat because that thing's been on sale in Europe for the past 4 or 5 years. All the bugs were worked out of it. Charger, not so much. So that's the only other disclaimer I will say. But yeah, phenomenal deals out there for chargers if you want a hot rod EV for basically nothing. There you go. And Kraken said today's spots of the week were once again a bunch of ends. Nice. 2 Kona ends, a performance blue Veloster end, and a cyber gray Elantra end all yesterday. That's awesome. I actually saw, I think it was a black Kona end. I was pretty sure it was a real end Kona because they debadged it, but it had the large exhaust tips and the bodywork. So I'm pretty sure either that or it was a very good clone. But I think it was a real Kona end, which are pretty rare around here. Yeah, so I did actually see one and think of you, Kraken. So I'm glad you're having some fun with the ends again. And Joe says, "Sup, Matt? What's one of your favorite car bumper stickers?" There was one really good one I saw, I think it was last year. I can't remember what it was. It actually is the first one that made me laugh out loud in a while. I wish I could remember it. I can't remember it. I mean, honestly, all the bumper stickers that I noticed these days are there was one I parked next to a Model 3 this past week that it was had a bumper sticker that said anti-Elon club or something. And yeah, that's kind of anytime I see a Tesla owner that's like, I don't like Tesla or, Elon, that's kind of always a nice one to see just because it's just good to know that not everyone that drives Teslas is in support of the antics that Elon's doing, in my opinion. So it's probably not to get political, but that's really the only bumper stickers I ever see anymore. It seems like, most people don't use bumper stickers that much, at least around here, but those kind of definitely cropped up a lot here in the past couple of months. But Raphael says, I see Kia K4s everywhere. I like the looks of the K5 better, but I'm glad to see an inexpensive car doing well. I agree. And I am really happy to see that too. And yeah, I'm curious. I don't know if I've seen what K4 sales numbers are like just yet, but they seem to be, popping up pretty quickly around here as well. So I think, inexpensive cars are going to have a huge rest of the decade, I think, honestly, again, as long as, the economic things seem to be squeezing people more and more financially. And I actually read there's a big article that some automotive research firm did, that they actually are predicting that they are already seeing the early signs of truck growth dropping off, and that they're starting to see people already kind of seeing the writing on the wall. I think a lot of people that were burned by the recession in 2008, they're hearing the word recession again, and they're saying, "Uh-oh, I want to dump my big gas guzzler before their full recession actually hits." And so I think they're seeing a lot of people being reluctant to go into larger vehicles, anticipating rough times here in the next few years, and that they are starting to see. Not only did we already see last year a surge in small cars, and kind of that's been growing, I think, ever since really car prices inflated a couple of years ago here. And I think they're starting to see that has staying power, and that has a lot of growth potential. And they're seeing that sedans, especially, I think, even for a lot of people, they were kind of suggesting that even going down to an SUV, still in people's minds, it was like, well, this still might not be as efficient. And they just it seems like for a lot of people, sedan is equivalent to conservative money choice, and more frugal to go for a sedan, even though most SUVs, you're talking RAV4 versus Camry, if we're comparing hybrid to hybrid, there's not a really big fuel economy difference or anything. But even if it's just to save a few $1,000s or $1,000, it seems like there are more people kind of going into those sedans and smaller cars in particular. And also, I think a lot of people, if they're actually starting to shop around, they're starting to watch car reviews and kind of be informed about how nice these compact cars are these days. I think a lot of people remember the tiny little Hyundai Elantras and stuff of 15 years ago, and they haven't looked at a new small car in a long time. They're like, oh wait, I have more space in the back of this K4 than I have in my 10-year-old RAV4 or whatever the case is. And so, seeing, wow, these cars have actually grown a lot. They're a lot better packaged than they used to be. They have the top-notch tech still. They have, a K4. You can get heated and ventilated seats, heated steering wheel. There's no compromise there, aside from, the lower seating position. But as long as it doesn't bother you, I mean, it's, I think a lot of people thought there were compromises before. And I hope they're seeing now that there aren't really any compromises to speak of, aside from, again, stacking ability in a hatch or something. But K4 will have that here, by next year as well. So, yeah, I'm happy to see that doing well too. I agree. Really, really. Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, I have a passion for inexpensive cars, so that's great to see. Although I'm surprised my Chevy Trax review this past week completely bombed. Like, I thought for sure there'd be some interest in that, and at least not yet. Maybe the algorithm will pick it up with non-subscribers and stuff eventually, but initially, inexpensive cars usually do pretty well on this channel, and that just did terribly. So, yeah, it's YouTube. You never know. But Kraken says, also, me and my Ferrari loving friend went to the local Ferrari dealer, and we saw an SF90XX, two F40s, and a 1956 250 GT Modena. That's awesome. Modena. That's yeah. That, I mean, especially the 56 has got to be very rare. I don't know how many of the 250 GTs they made, but it's a high dollar car. That's impressive. I mean, F40 as well, but that is quite the setup there at your local dealer. Man, they got some hot stuff there. That's awesome. I wish we had a Ferrari dealer near here. I have no Ferrari dealer at all. There's either I got to go to New York City, I got to go to DC, Philly, or Columbus. And the Columbus one's kind of crappy. So all far away, sadly. I can't Google at any local Ferraris. Kyle, thank you so much for a very generous super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, if Dodge brings back the Hemi V8 to the Charger, will that be a hit or is it too late? I feel dealers would charge an arm and a leg above MSRP. I think it would be a hit. I think a lot of people hate on the Charger EV because it's electric. I think if you put a V8 in it, I think that you would get most people to admit that the new design is badass. Like, I think people would love, or at least openly admit that they love the design, if it was, the right package and the right, motor for them. But so I think you could see a lot of people really convert over to then making the Charger a big hit. And I think it sounds like that's going to happen. Supposedly, there's V8 sounding Chargers running around in Mexico. Supposedly, I haven't been following all that stuff super closely, but that's, what I heard. And so maybe they found a way to fit it in. I think, it's something that if it does come back, though, they're going to be up against the times that we're in, and again, I'd love to be wrong. Maybe we'll all be flying high in a few months, but it seems like people are probably not going to have a whole lot of money to go around. Supply is going to be tough for a lot of stuff. And, that vehicle is also going to be hit with extra pricing because there's going to be some tariff components. It's built in Canada. And so, I mean, there's some stuff again with the U.S. trade agreement with Canada and Mexico that still kind of applies. So I think they said parts are exempt from tariffs, but I still think there's some complications there, and also some of the foreign parts that aren't coming from Canada or Mexico, because I believe there are foreign components in that vehicle. I think a lot of the battery pack probably still comes from China and stuff. That's all going to drive the price up. I guess if we're talking gas version, you won't have the battery component, so that'd be mostly like the electric one. But maybe some of the tech could be more expensive. I don't know exactly where all that stuff comes from. All I know is the Charger wasn't on the top 10 list of most U.S. content vehicles or North American content vehicles. So that's the other thing, is people are going to be more pinched on money. It's going to be more expensive. So we'll just have to see. And also gas could also get more expensive as well. So, it'll be interesting to see. I hope that it's a hit, because Dodge, could certainly use the hit. And I think that car is a really sweet car. They did a great job, making it a lift back, giving it a big back seat, all these really cool things. The interior is nice. I mean, there's a lot that it has going for it. And so I don't want to see it be this failure, that it may end up being, just because it was 5 years too early or something. And I hope that, the V8 kind of keeps it going, and then eventually the EV versions there waiting in the wings for people whenever they are ready to, jump up to something actually faster, because the V8 version will be slower than even the base electric one. But, again, that doesn't matter, I know, for most Hemi fans these days. But, It's gonna be an uphill battle either way, I think. But I think the V8 should do a lot better for it. But thank you so much for the generous super chat, Kyle. I really appreciate it, and thanks so much for your support. Hope you're doing well. And Lancelot, thank you so much also for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that, and happy to see some familiar faces there, and I think maybe 1 or 2 new ones too, able to get those memberships. So thanks so much for the generosity. I really appreciate it. And let me see here. So Vishal says that K4 has been popping up a lot in his area as well. Pretty striking design in real life. Yeah, I think it does look really good. And Bird Dog said he spotted a 91 to 92 Escort GT in great condition. That's a very rare spot. That's awesome. I haven't seen one of those in a long time. And Luke says, sorry for the late check-in. I'm in Tennessee. I just fueled my truck. I saw a Volkswagen ID Buzz in Cincinnati on my way here. Nice. I'm happy to see an ID Buzz out and about. My local dealer's got a few of them, but I have not actually seen one out driving on the roads other than, the one that I was in. But I hope that does better for them because I love that thing. I'm so excited. It's like, 20 years of rumors about, there's going to finally be a new bus coming back. And then it finally comes back. And it seems like it's not selling super well. I think there's actually some good lease deals to be had on that as well. Anyone who's open to it. If our garage could fit that, I'd try and talk Beth into one for our next vehicle after the Mach-E. I loved it that much. It's so fun to drive with the quirky seating position and stuff. Oh, I love the ID Buzz. And that's the first time I've loved the Volkswagen in a long time. So yeah, I'm glad you saw one out in the road. I'm glad someone bought one. And Dylan says, had an idea that probably wouldn't work, but what if instead of tariffs, they decided to make vehicles built here in the States exempt from sales tax, encouraging production here possibly? That would be a great idea as well. I agree. That would be really nice, especially here in PA. It's 7% sales tax. And yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can, promote production. I mean, and, you look at the factories that are already in progress, that were in progress before January. This Hyundai Meta plant that just came online, the Scout factory. I mean, those factories were all built here because we gave them preferential tax credit treatment. Again, trying to entice people with the carrot, leading the horse with the carrot. And it worked. There's been more. I think actually, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure there was more manufacturing, at least as far as cars go. I don't follow every industry, but as far as cars, I'm pretty certain we've had more factories that broke ground, in the last administration than we've had, for a long time since then, prior. I mean, I think in all of the 2010s, I feel like there's probably been less new car factories put up than we had here, in the past 5 years. It's, I think there's a lot of good ways to do it without wrecking the economy. I'm all for, if you want to bring more jobs to the States, again, I think it's great as long as that you can find the workers. That's, I think, the big problem that, like I've said in the past is the big unknown. All these ideas sound very nice until you start trying to, put out job listings and no one responds because you're paying them, whatever the minimum, wages or whatever. And, I don't know what factory workers make, but, it's, unless you're working with one of the UAW ones, it's probably not amazing. And even remember all the UAW drama from back at the end of 2023, this back and forth, and, all the car companies saying, oh, we can't afford to do all this. And they finally agreed to a middle ground. That was hard fought. And I mean, those workers were striking, were ready to walk off the job because they wanted even more money. And then, you try and entice people with these new factories and new places, you're going to run out of people really quick. And that's again, I just wish that people, when they made these policies, would actually look all the way down the road and say, okay, this is a nice idea. Sure. This is a great goal. Now, is it actually realistic, and how far? Let's do some studies first instead of just, playing poker with every other economy in the world and bluffing and trying to throw our weight around and act like big shots. Why don't we do intelligent studies and see how many workers do we have in each of these places that we want to put a factory? And, how much are these people willing to make? How, and do focus groups and figure this stuff out and do it intelligently instead of blindly trying to hope that car companies are going to throw money away building factories in the middle of nowhere where no one wants to work for, that kind of money. It's just, anyway. I'll move on, but yeah, there's all kinds of ways. I saw someone else this week suggested something similar, not sales tax, but just said something like, another like stimulus kind of way to bring, more manufacturing here, that didn't put a tax on the American people, because that's what a tariff is. It's a tax. And it's going to put, have less money in our pockets as a result. And it's not going to have the intended effect, I think, as everyone who who knows what they're talking about seems to agree. But anyway, I'll move on. Let me see. So Joel, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, cool spot, Subaru Justy. Saw 3 smart cars last week. Nice. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if it's because now the extra awareness of the Fiat, I see more smart cars around. Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised. I feel like they're fairly resilient. Like, I think smart cars have stuck around longer than anything else that age range. Like, seems like smart owners really love them and really kind of keep them on the road versus every other vehicle from that era that's, a lot of them have been thrown away at this point. And the Subaru Justy is very rare. I can't tell you the last time I saw one of those. So very cool spot. Nice one. Thanks for sharing, Joel. And thank you for the super chat. And Vancy, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate the generosity. And thanks for stopping by too. I hope you're doing well. I also see, he says, I see a new Gen X3 about once a week. Is it me, or do they already look like the next, or do they already look old next to the previous gen? I mean, I think that they went a little more conservative with that styling, but I can see what you mean about kind of looking a little bit old. I think the back end, especially, you have a point. The back end on the new X3 does certainly have like a plainer kind of look to it versus the more complex and I think more stylized and therefore high tech and maybe modern looking back end. I certainly agree on the back end. The front end, I think they're kind of, to me at least, relatively equal. But because I think actually the new X3 back end kind of reminds me a little bit of like the first gen and even the second gen, kind of the simplicity of that, hatch and everything. So yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm curious if anyone else agrees with that, but that's, I can totally see what you mean there. And thanks so much also for being a member here for over a year now. I think it's probably close to 2 years at this point, but thanks so much for the support and the generosity. I see William says current Gen X3 rear end reminds me of the European 2 Series Active Tour. Yeah, and there's definitely some family resemblance there as well. And Trent Cargeist can confirm that smart car owners love their cars. My mom used to own one and love that she still talks about getting another one. Nice. I'm glad that they, didn't burn people and people actually seem to, have fond memories and attachments to them. That's great. Lancelot says, I once saw someone had dropped a motorcycle engine into a smart car. It was so hilarious to see. Yeah, I think actually that Dude in Blue reviewed. It was a Hayabusa powered smart car, right? I think so. I think someone's actually put a K swap in one as well. But yeah, I remember. Yeah, I think he's the one that did the Hayabusa smart car review. It's been a long time. That's funny. Yeah, I can't imagine the insanity of something like that. Takes some guts to drive something like that. And let me see here. Kraken says, also, Matt, did you take a look at my 2-year update I posted? I forgot to ask you last week. I have not. This week, I have been insanely busy. I will explain more as to why in the next couple of weeks. I do have a fairly big announcement coming up. Not ready to get into it just yet, but had something new that is took up a lot of my extra time this week. So I will definitely check it out here this next week. Hopefully I will be on a media drive here this week, but I'll try and find some time to check that out and see what the update is from you there. So thanks for reminding me. I appreciate that. Theodore says, I seen grandma driving a Dodge Durango Hellcat. It was the coolest thing because she was flying. Wow. It's a cool grandma. Danny says the main issue with the Bolt, which we are kind of pissy about, is the AC is blowing warm air. Hopefully we get a decent loaner from the dealer. Rare spots are 02 Baja Turbo. I love Bajas. That's awesome. And an 09 Yukon Denali hybrid. Nice. You also saw a hybrid GM SUV this week. That's awesome. Man, yeah, Baja. People also sometimes ask if I needed like a car under 10 grand. Scion TC is always one of my favorites, but a manual Baja, especially if you get a turbo, that'd be a pick for sure. I always had a soft spot for those. In another life, I would have done a project car Baja. Would have been cool. Just no time, no money, no space, but that'd be fun. And Kyle says the weather near me, Matt, in New Jersey is rainy on and off this week. Great timing with your convertible press car. Yes, and when that's a member knows I have a very fun convertible this week that. Unfortunately, thankfully, I was able to actually film rolling shots in it today, so I was able to get some nice top-down shots and have some fun in it today. But yeah, it's like, and of course, like the car is going away on Thursday, and then every day after Thursday, it's like beautiful and sunny, like every single day in the forecast, at least for now. Pittsburgh's bipolar, so it might look great, and then the next minute it turns into a complete disaster. But yeah, it's yeah, we've had so much rain this past week too. It's been, I don't know if you guys got hit with any of these crazy storms that came through this past week, but we got hit with like the hardest gust of wind that I've experienced in Pittsburgh in a long time. It actually blew a piece of siding off of our house. It's still sitting in the tree on the other side of the house, just hanging out up there because it's too high up for us to reach. So it blew siding off. Our downspout actually got like ajar and it got like thrown sideways. So I had to go up on the roof and put that back on the other day. And but yeah, we had a ton of down trees. There's been some people that have had no power for like 4 days now. Then a tree just this morning on one of the roads that I drive on all the time, giant tree came down and crushed a Nissan Altima. Thankfully the people were totally fine, but so many crushed cars, crushed houses. 3 doors down, a tree got struck by lightning and hit the house that it was next to. Crazy weather this week. So thankfully we came out mostly unscathed there. Just have to find a way to get that extra piece of siding back on the house. But other than that, yeah, it's been a wild week with weather. So first world problems, I can't drive the fun convertible around, but hopefully, yeah, I'll have a couple more opportunities maybe here before it goes away. And it's sorry to hear about the rain that you have as well, Kyle. I'm hoping, yeah, you guys don't get the bad weather we got because it was a whopper of a storm. And then we've had more rain. I think they said the past 24 hours we've had like was it like an inch and a half of rain? That's what they said. Probably not that crazy, but I mean it's just been like nonstop downpouring. It's been wild. And Raphael, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, saw Rady review a CT4V Blackwing. I prefer it to the CT5V because it's smaller, but both are a total win. They're both fantastic. I totally agree. I spent a week with a Blackwing CT4V as well with a manual. Still probably one of my favorite manuals. Such a fun car. And yeah, the twin turbo V6 is so fun. You can push it more, excuse me. You can, kind of exploit the power, exploit the platform. And I like smaller cars too. So I think in some ways it is better. I mean, it's handles better than the 5. The 5 is bigger, it's heavier and all that. So the 4's got a lot of perks. I mean, it's just, you miss out on the huge appeal of the supercharged V8 in the 5, but that twin turbo V6 also still sounds really good. And it's, yeah, phenomenal car. Definitely, anyone who hasn't seen it already, definitely go check out all my stuff on the CT4V Blackwing as well. I had a lot of glowing praise for that car. It's so fun. And let me see here. Other member questions. Dave says, I found a derelict car near my rural home. Looks like a mid-60s sedan. Any idea where I could look up pics to identify it? Most obvious part is the passenger rear quarter with gas door. I'm sure if you describe it, B. Mitchell can probably tell you what it is. He's in here in the live, I think, still. He is an expert, to say the least, on classic cars. So also, I don't know how many of you guys use the, I think it's Google's Lens, I think, or something like that. There's you can take a picture and Google can analyze it and tell you what it is. And that might be able to help you out with that as well. But yeah, if you give us a description, I'm sure we can maybe try and knock our heads together and try and figure it out for you there. But always cool to see any survivor cars like that. And Linda, thanks for stopping by. Raphael says, I saw my first Santa Cruz yesterday. I need something that can haul compost, but that's a really attractive truck. Yeah, Santa Cruz is great. Very nice little truck. And yeah, if you don't need a ton of capability, they're really solid. And like I said in my Maverick video this past week, I think I'd actually go for the Santa Cruz because these days Santa Cruz pricing hasn't gone up like Maverick has, and they're pretty much equivalent pricing wise now. And I think you get actually more for your money with the Santa Cruz. So they're really good. I think they're kind of underappreciated too. Trent Carga, thanks for stopping by from Arizona here. And Linda says, I know that you like to lease, and for you it makes sense. I'd rather buy a used car and keep it 10 plus years. It's hard to believe my Mustang is 8 years old now. I mean, yeah, it all comes down to personal preferences on that stuff. I mean, that's the way my parents were. Same deal. They buy a car and run it into the ground, I mean, we may actually end up doing that. Like, just because you lease doesn't mean you don't keep it forever. I think, again, assuming car prices go nuts, like I'm expecting them to here, Mach-E and the Fiat are going to definitely be worth buying out at the end of their lease because both cars are dirt cheap for their buyouts. And so even just a flip and, even if we do want to get something else, definitely going to buy them out. And, unless something crazy happens, but I'm assuming they will both be worth buying out. And we've actually discussed, I mean, also if everyone's getting pinched next year with finances and stuff, like we may just end up keeping the Mach-E because the real nice thing too, so we did the 4 options plan, which it's like a lease, but it's a balloon finance payment instead. So it's like lease and you can walk away from it at the end of the term, or you can, purchase it with the, paying the final balloon payment as you can also just refinance that or whatever. And the cool thing I just learned this week is that you could actually refinance and finance the balloon payment at the end of the term under the original interest rate that the car was under whenever it was purchased, which I think the Mach-E is like a 2.25% interest rate. And especially on something used, that is like, even in the best of financial times, you can't like get a used car loan, even with, I don't know what the max credit score is, 840 or something. You cannot get a used car loan for anything close to that, I think. So that is another reason why it's like free money. I'm pretty sure we're going to buy out the Mach-E. And then whether we, again, get something new still next year or we keep it, we may end up just keeping it until, financial stuff improves, and who knows when that will be. So, because we're really happy with the Mach-E. It's obviously very low miles for, a 3-year-old car at this point. And so, yeah, there's no need to get rid of it. The battery's under warranty for 10 years. Yeah. So, I mean, we may actually keep it a long time here, but yeah, there's lots of perks to leasing, for some people as well. Let me see that Lansworth says my other car is or some good bumper stickers as well. Raphael says bumper sticker says, I'm married, but make me an offer. That one killed me. That's funny. Yeah, I wish I could remember the funny one that I saw. It was, oh man, I like wanted to like go up to the person and be like, you have the best bumper sticker I've ever seen. Anyway, Kraken says, funny enough, N Club PA no longer has just one black Kona N. We just got the black one I spotted yesterday who came from the Turn 14 event in Horsham. Kind of sad I'm no longer the only black Kona N. Yeah, I'm sure that's fine because everyone would know it's you automatically. So now you just gotta like do something else to like separate yours, maybe do some graphics or I don't know, some crazy wheels or something so everyone knows that it's you whenever you're driving by. Shrunken Car Guy says, one of my favorites is the Empire is not concerned with your stick figure family. Yeah, I've seen some of the funny like anti-stick figure stickers as well. Those are always usually pretty entertaining. Kraken says, I'm likely going to make a sticker for Kraken that says, I may drive a Hyundai, but at least I don't drive a Cybertruck. Yeah, I'm sure someone's already done this, but there is probably a really good market for like snarky bumper stickers that are anti-Tesla and anti-Cybertrucks right now. I'm sure someone's making a killing on it, but if I had more free time, I'd just do random shirt ideas that pop into my head, random bumper stickers, all that kind of stuff. It's it'd be fun. Luke says, I have a bumper sticker that says, "Did I offend you? Call the ambulance." Nice. George says, where does one go after owning a BRZ? What's the next step? It depends on, I guess, why you're not having a BRZ anymore. Because I think certain people probably get tired of the BRZ's power level and they graduate kind of like I did up into something more powerful. And, everyone kind of takes different paths. I think a lot of people go up to like BMW M2 kind of stuff. It all comes down to obviously what your financial situation's like. A lot of people, though, go up to Mustang, Camaro, Challenger, stuff like that. So I'd say that's kind of, the way some people go. Other people, I think maybe like an even more slightly raw experience with the Miata and going for that, or going to like S2000, something, it's got a little bit of a more character-filled engine. But I think most people end up getting out of a BRZ. They get out of it because they want more power. And for those people, I think, Mustang, especially more so than Camaro and Challenger, because the Mustang, the Coyote motor is such a high rever that coming out of a BRZ, you kind of feel like you're in familiar territory. You just have, a lot more weight to play around with and a lot more power, but a similar kind of characteristic. I think a lot of people also go use Porsche. I've seen a lot of people, say, okay, well, the BRZ is the poor man's Cayman. Now I have a few more dollars to spend. I want the real man or the, actual Cayman. And that's kind of, the next step. And a lot of people even just go for the older, cheaper, ones, just because, again, having a higher revving 6-cylinder is a nice step up from the 4. But a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people also that are just very loyal to the BRZs. And if they do find themselves wanting more power, they supercharge it or they turbo it or, do whatever, or they go up to against second gen. It's also, you didn't specify whether you're in first gen BRZ or second gen. Second gen is a great step up, more power, more torque, obviously nicer interior and all that. There's a lot of nice enhancements that in some, alternate reality where I still had my BRZ, I absolutely would have upgraded it to the second gen version and probably not looked back. It's a really nice evolution. So I think those are the potential ways that I've seen people go. I think usually, though, once people get hooked on rear-wheel drive, they don't want to give that up. So I don't see very many people going to all-wheel drive stuff or going to front-wheel drive, or even, so I mean, I don't really see very many BRZ people going to hot hatches or anything like that. It's really, they just, go up to something higher horsepower rear-wheel drive. Dylan's right there with the same thing. And Linda says she's happy with her EcoBoost. EcoBoosts are great. Yeah, I love them for sure. And let me see. Trenton Car Guy says, interesting spots this week was a 67 or 68 Camaro drag car build and a Chevelle. Very nice. Great spots. Yeah, so happy we get the warm weather and all the fun hot rods come out here. Sorry I missed the super chat or the Jordan for the member chat here. Thanks for being a member for 19 months, Jordan. He says EVs, trucks, truck hybrids, SUVs, someone/something is in charge of U.S. advertising to make humans believe in what vehicle is USA worthy. Yeah, I think, though, a lot of it is truly geographical and cultural as well. I think with, the unique landscape of America, that's why long range stuff is important. That's why larger vehicles aren't as problematic, and this has kind of been one of the things also, I think Trump or someone was like, oh, why don't they like sell more trucks in Europe, or why don't they sell Escalades in Europe or whatever? And it's because they don't fit. And it's like, obviously Trump has been outside of America, but like, it sounds like it's coming from someone who's never been to another country. Like if you've been to these places, and you've driven on their roads, you do not want to be in a giant vehicle. Like American vehicles are just incompatible. And so I think, that goes the other way. This is why Fiat 500 sell terribly here. It's the perfect size. If you were in the UK or you're in Italy, it's perfect. But here, you are outgunned, you are, staring up at everyone else in their giant SUVs and trucks. And, so there's very real differences that drive why there's different buying preferences in different parts of the world. But, I think it is also, again, just a cultural thing, because I think, we had tiny cars. I mean, look at the 80s. You had some land barges, but for the most part, you had a lot of really small hatchbacks, and that was what the oil embargo crisis of the 70s really produced. And so there is those types of things. Again, even in the recession, we saw everyone dumping their Ford Excursions and all their giant vehicles for the same exact reason of like, uh-oh, gas is getting crazy. I'm scared. I can't afford this. And they go and dump it. I mean, I remember, 2010, how dirt cheap Excursions were. I mean, no one wanted an Excursion after that. But, 4 years prior, they were selling for big bucks. And so, there's all these kinds of factors that play into it. But, I think that the truck thing is oftentimes just an arms race of, people want to feel safe. And how do you feel safe if you're smaller than everybody else on the road? So you get the same size vehicle as everyone else, and then you feel safe and you feel normal and all that. And I think there is a psychological component to it as well, that, again, kind of prohibits people from being pragmatic as much as maybe they could be, because there's these things. 'Cause, I mean, cars are emotional purchases, and some people maybe approach it, in a very pragmatic way, but a lot of people, it's, oh, that looks cool, I'm going to buy that, or I like that color. I mean, and they buy a car because of the color. There's a lot of those types of things that go on, and so that's why, there's only so much that analyzing can do before you reach the end of the road. And it's like, some people just, you can't figure them out. You can't predict what they're going to buy. It makes no sense. If you ask them why, they can't really give you a good answer. There's a lot of that, even though it's the second biggest purchase they make outside of their house. A lot of people, it is still just like a knee jerk kind of thing that they do sometimes. And Linda, thanks for being a member for 32 months now. I really appreciate almost 3 years of support here. She says, I found that the turbo kicking in at 2,500 and around 5,000 works well for my crowded area. Yeah, that's what I loved about the EcoBoost, is especially with the factory tune. It's so punchy down low. You're right. And it's really great for zipping in and out of traffic and not having to work the car super hard to pass people and all that. They did a great job on the EcoBoost for sure. I think that's a car that never got enough credit, and still hasn't, I think, in a lot of ways. Let me see. I see Darnell says, I bought the Bullet simply for the green. There you go. And there's a lot of people that are like that. And there's, it's a personality thing. There's so many things that go into it. Let me see. So Raphael says, the new Charger is gorgeous. I'm still not ready to buy an EV, but it looks great. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I think it's a great look too, but I feel like it didn't, I don't know. I mean, maybe you guys saw different stuff online than I did, but it seemed like there wasn't a lot of praise even for the design when it first came out. And I was like, what are people like? So, I mean, some people didn't like the taillights. They thought it was a little too reminiscent of the pre-refresh last gen Charger, but I think it looks pretty good. I mean, that front though, I think it's such a sick look. Let me see. FC said, spotted this week, downtown Houston, matte black, Cybertruck, license plate, UFO boss. That's all I can do for that. I actually saw a matte black Cybertruck today as well, and it's always not an enjoyable experience. Darnell says, I don't know the sales numbers, but I've been seeing so many Mavericks around town. Maverick EV in 3 to 5 years, probably a winner. Possibly. We'll see what Ford does. They've kind of delayed a lot of their EV projects. I think a lot of that stuff was kind of in the works, and then now they've pivoted to going towards plug-in hybrids and stuff instead. So I think they're trying to capitalize on the next 4 years. And, again, we'll see how that plays out for them, if they end up behind in the 2030s or not. It'll be interesting to see how everyone plays that. But Mavericks sell very well. So, yeah, they are definitely a hot seller. So that's why I think a lot of us see a lot of them everywhere. And Kraken says, oh, Matt, another pair of spots. A Lamborghini 400 GT thing. Forgot the actual name. I think with the 400, was that before the Miura? It was like I'm blanking on the name of the one that came before Miura. And actually was the first Lambo. I thought it was, is it called the 440? Yeah, I don't know. It's something like that. Maybe it's called the 400 GT. I've seen a couple of those a long time ago, but man, if you saw it out on the road, I don't think I've ever actually seen one on the road. I think I've seen them just always in like museums and stuff. So that's impressive. And McLaren Artura GT4 also very impressive. So I don't think there is any higher version of the Artura right now. There's just regular Artura, and then there is, unless you saw the race car version, like, but that should not be on the road. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you saw just a super modified one, or if you're in a race, or what the deal was. I don't even know. Do they have a racing version of it? I think they have a racing version of the Artura. I'm so out of the loop on racing, but yeah, incredible spots either way. That's awesome, especially I guess in PA. That's cool. Raphael also says, "I love the ID bus. That's one that just hit wrong because of the price." Yeah, I mean, but there's discounts now. I think most Volkswagen dealers are like 10 grand off, and I still don't see them moving. So I don't know. I see Mr. TPA Florida says, "Matt, Volkswagen dealers were told by Volkswagen to wrap their ID buses in brighter colors in order to sell them. They're not selling due to boring colors." Interesting. Okay, well, good on dealers for telling Volkswagen what's up. That makes a lot more sense now, because actually, so the Volkswagen dealer near me has 3. They originally had a plain black one, a plain white one, and then they did have like one, I think it was either the blue and white or the orange and white. But recently I did see that there's now 2-tone ones, and one actually is a custom wrap because they did it Steelers colors. It's yellow and black. I know it's technically, gold and black and gold, but they like did like a Steelers one. That one I think is still sitting. So even that, trying to really appeal to the Pittsburgh buyer, is not moving them, unfortunately. So I mean, maybe they need to do more advertising on the deals. Maybe dealers need to be like, "Hey, look, we're doing deals on these," because maybe some people are just like, "Oh, those are so expensive, forget it." They don't even bother to inquire. And maybe that's part of it. I don't know. Or maybe dealers just being crappy too. I don't know. That's probably the more likely scenario. Let me see here. So Trent Car Guy says, "Yeah, Hayabusa swaps seem to be a thing. Can confirm the stock motor in a Smart is not exactly sporty." Yeah, oh, it's terrible. The stock powertrain in a Smart, I hated it, honestly. I mean, I'm glad other people like it, but the single clutch transmission in that thing was just so slow. I mean, it was like, I'll do like, thankfully I'm in a rocking chair because I need to be like able to rock, because it's like, and I drove one back whenever I was a detailer at a dealership, but it was like you would accelerate, it was like, and it was like, and it would actually like rock forwards and backwards in between shifts. It was so slow with the shifting. And just, I think they might have done like later version. I know the electric one would probably be great. And then I think they did a different transmission maybe, or a different powertrain. I think other parts of the world got better ones as well. But man, yeah, the one that I drove was just not good at all. Not a good experience. And Betsy says saw 2 C8 on I-71 southbound in Louisville, Kentucky about 2 weeks ago. Is Media Drive coming up soon? If it is, I'm not invited. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it. I didn't get invited for Z06. I did get invited for regular C8. So flip a coin as far as whether I'll get an invite. I mean, Chevy's cool with me, but I know that one is going to be, very selective program. Z06 was also very selective, even though that was in Pittsburgh. I still couldn't get into that one. So Z01 probably won't go on the drive, so I don't know. But I think they should be. I thought, did they say summer, I think, for the launch? So maybe Media Drive won't be till the summer. I'm not sure. Probably just, prototypes and stuff, especially, right around, the factory there in Kentucky. Is Bowling Green. I don't think it's too far from Louisville, right? So yeah. And if you are in Louisville, I will be in the area this week, I will say. So keep an eye on my socials. I don't know if I'll have any free time to do any hangouts or anything, but yeah, because I don't think I can say yet what I'm doing. I mean, it's not a big deal, but be on a Media Drive, and you'll see that if you're on socials, you'll see that this week here. And I see, the OK Spaces says we got dumped on here in southwestern PA. Yeah, the weather was definitely crazy. And Trent Car Guy says, let's see if I trigger TFI PW with this, but smart cars and Mirages are both not exactly sporty cars with stock motors. Yeah, I don't know. TFI is missing all these opportunities. I don't know if he's here. All right, I just scrolled down and I saw he has weighed in on that. Someone else made a anti-Mirage comment earlier, TFI, and we thought you'd come out of the woodwork and you did not for that one. So I'm happy to see you stopping by. Hope you're doing well. Let me see. Mike's asking, do you think Mazda will survive the tariffs? Only the CX-50 is produced here. It's hard to say. Obviously, it's so hard to predict any of this stuff. I don't know. I think Mazda, at least now with the more premium push of the higher stuff, there's a hope that they could maybe up the price because it really does undercut stuff very nicely. I think, it depends on what other imported brands do. I think if they are savvy with how they raise prices, they could kind of get away with it with most of the Mazdas, honestly. Like if you told me that every Mazda that I reviewed in the past few years was $5,000 more expensive, I'd say okay, and I wouldn't have a problem with it because they're that nice. So, there's some of those things I think they can do. It's so hard because none of these car companies are being honest right now publicly about what's going on aside from their financial, phone calls and stuff where they, talk openly about the implications financially of this stuff. But, everyone's still saying, oh, we think we're pretty well positioned, this, that, and the other. Mazda, I think they are in a fairly strong place now. They had a very good year. They've had best sales. I think last month was a record. The month before was a record. I mean, they are like firing on all cylinders at Mazda. And they don't want to lose that momentum. So, it's just a matter of how they all play it. It's so hard to say because, I would say probably half of the car companies out there, could be completely wiped out if they have to pass these tariffs on. But if everyone does it in unison and everyone says, okay, we all have to raise prices by X amount, then at least they are all getting hit kind of equally. And so, it would definitely hurt all of them, but, it wouldn't hurt one more than the other. But it's, this next year is going to be very interesting to see. And I said, first the low hanging fruit. I mean, even I've said Mitsubishi would probably go away, would be one of the first ones to go away. But I mean, there was even a Mitsubishi employee that recently was like, oh, I work for Mitsubishi. We're not going anywhere. So I don't know. Maybe they know something I don't. I don't know how these companies are going to get around it because there's no way to do it because it's just supply and demand. If you jack up the price, people are not going to buy. And if you don't jack up the price, then you are not making money anymore. And so there's no middle ground there. Again, you can go kind of halfway, but that might not be enough to save the ship, So I really don't know. And I think, yeah, it's just so hard to say. I don't know what Mazda's doing currently, actually. Maybe there's some Mazda channel or someone who's more focused on Mazda that knows, because I don't know if they're doing what everyone else is doing and just holding at the port in Europe and Japan and all the other places and not importing, or I don't know if Mazda is actively importing and just paying tariffs or what, because Hyundai has said they're not raising prices till June. Ford's saying they're going to do their employee pricing thing until July. So I don't know what Mazda's doing. So I'm sure there's an answer out there. Maybe a little bit of hunting around on Google, maybe you'll be able to find an answer, but there's not a whole lot of reporting. I haven't seen anyone report about that as far as the major car news sites about what Mazda's doing in particular, but it's going to be ugly for all of them. I could go out on a whole rabbit trail with that, but I won't. But there's, it's going to be, there's stuff that already it's irreversible that just like has been screwed up. The supply chain is already screwed up. It's a done deal. Like, it's gonna be crazy. But anyway, I'll just let that play itself out, and we can discuss as it hits us. But anyway, let me see. Darnell says, "I hope Mazda survives. Their cars are perfect for so many buyers." I know they are fantastic. I love everything Mazda's been doing recently. So we'll see what happens. It would be really a shame if they are finally hitting their stride and then they get screwed up by this. But again, they won't be the only ones. And Kraken says, last night around 11, I was scared crapless as a lightning strike hit 50 feet behind my bedroom window. Hairs were standing on my entire body, sounding like a crack whip right next to your ear. That's wild, man. Yeah, that's got to be freaky. Yeah, it was. I mean, even the one that was just 3 houses down from us was, crazy enough. Even hearing that, so I can only imagine 50 feet behind you. That's, man, yeah, crazy stuff. Glad you're okay. Hopefully your house is all good and everything else is all good. But yeah, a lot of devastation here in southwestern Pennsylvania. I mean, it's not like some crazy thing like we've seen with other, floods and tornadoes in the past few months, but still for southwestern PA, it's usually pretty well insulated. It was a pretty whopper of a storm. And Spike, thanks for stopping by. And Darnell says, Google Lens is so good for animals and plants identification. And yeah, Linda also says it works well. Okay, so I did have the right term. So thanks for confirming that, everyone. Yeah, Google Lens is great. And Raphael says, my Camry will be paid off in 3 months with 38,000 miles. I have no intention of going back into payments when it's in excellent shape. Yeah, definitely. Anyone who's happy with your cars and you're sure you'll be happy for the next 4 or 5 years, yeah, definitely do not baby it, treat them well, and just make sure that definitely don't buy a car. And this is why the car review channels like myself are gonna be in trouble, because I think a lot of people are gonna do the same exact thing, and that's the smart thing to do, is do not buy with these crazy high prices. They probably won't ever come back down, but it's just, people can't afford all these insane prices already, and then you put 25% more on, or even 15 or 10%, is going to be not comfortable for a lot of people. And Fuchs says, my funniest bumper sticker was on a Pilot. My driving scares me too. That's a good one. And Darnell says, when does the BRZ get the 3-cylinder turbo? I don't know. It's been all over the place with the BRZ rumors. The idea is that there will not actually be a new BRZ. It'll be GR86. That Toyota's going at it alone for the next one, which sounds about right for Subaru in my opinion. So but as far as GR86 getting it, it sounds like, I mean, to me, common logic based on usual product cycles would suggest, we had first gen BRZ debut in 2012 for the 2013 model year. We had, GR86 BRZ debut 2021 for the 2022 model year. So, same kind of timeline there of about 9 years or so, would put us, sometime into the early 2030s. But it seems like all the rumors suggesting 2026, something like that, which sounds really short, especially for a car like that takes a long time to pay off. I know it wasn't an entirely new thing for the second gen BRZ in 86, but I still feel like they would have more than 5 years in it, but or 4 years, I guess, really. So I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening. If it is a 2026 kind of thing, maybe we see it this year. I don't know, but it's anyone's guess. Apparently, someone said there are prototypes running around potentially with that setup. I think that was something that was reported even late last year. But as far as, again, if they go forward with it and what they end up deciding to do, I don't know. But I hope that happens, because that would be phenomenal fun, I think. And Blacked Out 5.0 fan says, I wish more cars were available with key ignition. Yeah, he is the biggest fan of the key ignition there. It's definitely a fun, nostalgic thing. And I know for some people, they prefer the old school kind of reliability of that as well. And let me see. Chad says, I miss the lower horsepower, lower weight kind of vehicles. Yeah, I know. They're really fun for sure. And the cars have gotten so bloated. It's a shame, but again, if people didn't want that, if they didn't keep buying it, then the car companies wouldn't make it anymore. So, and I mean, even Ford has said, Jim Farley last year said, people need to fall out of love with large trucks if we want to make the electrification thing work. In his mind, I don't think that's necessarily needed, but he's saying, because these giant battery packs are super expensive, and if people are okay with smaller vehicles, then you wouldn't need a huge battery pack, and then you'd be able to get better efficiency and all this stuff. So Ford seems, at least they talk like they want to try and downsize stuff, but then they're the biggest producer of giant trucks, so it's kind of one of those talking out of both sides of your head kind of thing. But but at least I guess his heart's in the right place. I don't know. But let me see. Darnell, okay, we talked about the bullet in green. Trent Car Guy says, I like the new Charger. If I didn't work a minimum wage job and they were cheaper, I'd consider one. Totally get that. But hey, if these leases are super cheap, I don't know, again, what insurance will be like for you. But if if they're super cheap leases, maybe it's something could work out down the road. Who knows? And Trent Car Guy says, I think it was the 450 GT. You might be right. Yeah. That might be the actual name. I'll have to look it up here, or someone else can. Now, Raphael says, completely off topic, Wild Turkey Rare Breed Rye. That's one you have to try. My cabinet will never be without it again. Interesting. Yeah, I've never had that one. I've always heard people really speak highly of Wild Turkey. I don't think I've ever done more than a sample of it. I need to try a little bit more of that in the future. And I'm hoping to have some good bourbon here this week in Kentucky. And I see Tion wants to bring back the 427. That would be fun. And B. Mitchell says, speaking of Volkswagen Buzz, that was the other interesting car site. Burnt Orange and Cream one in Fargo, North Dakota. So they're officially mainstream now. Nice. Well, I'm glad someone got one up there, and that's great. That's a good combo. That's very nice. And let me see. Trent Car Guy says, yeah, the transmission was slow. I'm sure the transmission in a Smart shifted slower than some manuals. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I totally could have shifted a manual faster than that Smart car did, for sure. And let me see here. So Vatsy says it would be cool to spot you in the hometown. Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't want to I don't want to give it away, but yeah, keep an eye out this week for a new vehicle in mass out on the roads, and you'll probably won't figure it out. And TFI says GTA got delayed another year. Bought a PS5 a few months back, anticipating the late 25 release. On the bright side, I can plan my PTO for late May/early June and play to my heart's content. Nice. That's assuming they stick to the release date still, because everyone's being like, man, well, if they keep delaying it now, I mean, there's who knows when that thing's going to come out. But I think the good news is you bought your PS5 before PS5 prices go crazy. So as long as the actual game itself is still affordable by the time it comes out, because games are probably going to be $150 by the time the tariffs are done with that. So yeah, but yeah, at least you got your console, and you'll be set for a while. And Luke saw a lime green ID Buzz. Okay, so everyone else is starting to see ID Buzzes. This is good. I'm happy. At least you guys are seeing ID Buzzes out on the road. That's good to see. Thanks for sharing, everyone. And Ben says, I just watched your review of the 2012 Corvette Grand Sport that you did back in 2013. The algorithm had it in my YouTube feed. Interesting. Yeah, the algorithm strangely does push old videos, and I have no clue why. I don't even think YouTube fully knows why sometimes. But I'm glad that the algorithm is actually pushing you anything in my feed, because, man, my views got crushed last month. It was just ugly. It was, yeah, I'll explain more in the future. But yeah, YouTube is really, it's really pushing my patience with the insanely low views. It just seems like YouTube is really against me these days. And I think there's also I think a lot of people are just over my channel as well. I won't, sit here and talk about all that stuff, but I'm just happy that the algorithm is pushing an old video. That is surprising, but very good to hear. So thank you for letting me know that. And the OK Basis says, thoughts on the Honda CRZ with a manual? Feels like it could be a fun project car if the hybrid battery isn't shot. As for bumper stickers, my Bolt has one that says, I used to be cool. Nice. That's funny. I should put one of those on the Fiat. But CRZ with a manual is a great idea. I think those are really cool cars. They're slow, you can get one with a manual, and that's a little more fun than the CVT for sure. And you can also get it with a supercharger, so that also adds to the fun component. But it's a really cool thing. I wish they would have stuck with the idea of a hybrid manual. But yeah, I actually really love CRZs. That could be a really fun project car. I mean, that's a project car I wouldn't mind, even, again, if I had time to just play around with cars. It'd be a fun one to tinker on and see, how far you can push it. Yeah, I totally endorse a CRZ purchase as long as again, yeah, battery's good. But even those older hybrid batteries are really easy to replace. I think even Chris Fix has a video on replacing a battery in a Prius. So you know, I don't think it's insanely hard to do. Possibly, I don't know, but you know, hopefully it'll be something I can keep them on the road for a long time. And Mark says, is the RS3 worth the premium over the updated S3, or is neither worth the price? I haven't driven them yet. I will be actually reviewing the S3 here in a couple of weeks. That video will probably be going live in June. But so, you know, I know it has the rear diff from RS3 now, and, you know, a couple of little tweaks. I mean, I guess it comes down to how badly do you want the 5-cylinder, because no matter how good the S3 handles, and no matter, even if it has every single other thing the RS3 has other than the engine, it's probably worth it just for the engine alone. I mean, again, it comes down to how you land on, you know, that sound and the epicness of that combo. But for me, yeah, S3 is fantastic as well. And, you know, if you can't jump up, you know, especially these days, I would certainly say be conservative with your money. You know, plan on, you know, things, you know, it's always going to be financially conservative in general, but especially, you know, coming up for the next few years here, I think if anything is a stretch, don't stretch. But if, you know, you could easily comfortably afford the RS3, I get the RS3, because not only it's also, I think it's a better investment, because even if you don't care about the 5-cylinder, the fact that that has that is always going to make it more desirable than the S3. S3s, from what I've seen, depreciate pretty normally, because, you know, everyone, you know, understands it's, you know, a nicer Golf R, and I would take it over a Golf R. I certainly think it's worth a premium over that, I think. But, you know, RS3 is truly special. It's something you cannot get in anything else in the Audi lineup. Here in the States, you can't get it in anything else in any vehicle. It's the last 5-cylinder in America. You know, it is truly, truly special, and you got to get an RS3 if you want anything like that, you know. And so for that reason alone, RS3s, I mean, they'd also depreciate. If you look on used sites, I mean, RS3s depreciate because it's an older, you know, German car, and you know, they always do their depreciation thing, but I think they hold their value better than a regular S3. And I think that especially if you're buying it and holding it for a long time, you're going to see that that is going to, again, be more desirable long-term, and that will be a collectible. I think I could see RS3s in 30 years going across Barrett-Jackson and getting good money. S3, maybe not so much, you know, so I think that's why, again, it completely comes down to a lot of variables there that I mentioned, but to me, all signs point to going for the RS3 if you can comfortably afford it. And personally, me, I would go for RS3 over S3 if I had the money to, you know, to spare. RS3 is, it's so magical. I'm excited for the S3 here in a couple of weeks, but you know, with all these refreshed Audis coming through, I'm really hoping I can get an RS3 as well. Because man, I love that thing. It was so fun. Anyway, Luco, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, regardless if I'm buying a car, I still like to watch reviews for info, curiosity, and if someone had a car that got totaled, they'll need to buy. That's a very good point. You're right. That is going to be the one thing that keeps car buying up somewhat. But you know, that's a pretty small market. And if those are the only people that are going to be in the car market are people that have their car get wrecked or their, you know, car fail or, you know, whatever the case is, like those types of people, I feel like there's not a ton of that. And that's, you know, that's not great for anyone that's in the car industry. It's something, but it's not a whole lot. And I know, yeah, you know, you said you watch even just for the curiosity standpoint. But you know, that's also a very small niche. You know, all of us, you know, we all agree like cars are the greatest thing ever, but you know, the average person, it is still an appliance, and it's an appliance they don't want to have to think about. They don't have to worry about it. You know, they hate car buying. They hate researching new cars. They hate having to even think about the idea of getting a new car. You know, and it's not an exciting thing. It's a pain. It's another enormous chore that is so annoying for so many people. And so, you know, I think that's why if if these people especially don't have to, and there's nothing enticing them in the market because everything's too expensive, like it's going to crater. And this is why, like I've said, I'm going to pivot to use stuff very quickly, depending on what happens after June or whatever. Whenever we really start to feel the pain of these tariffs, and we start to see the supply shortages popping up and stuff. I think that's going to be the thing that's you'll probably see a lot of people pivot to, honestly. And some people already have started, like I have. There's a few others I've noticed that have started to do that as well. So, it's going to be, and I mean, I think that was kind of always the plan for me, is eventually go back to just doing the greatest hits and revisit, the Nissan 350Z, and, revisit basically everything I reviewed 10 years ago. Because honestly, I've also become a lot better of a driver. I've had a lot more experience. I'm a better reviewer than I was 10 years ago. So even if I just, you go down to the first reviews that I did and just start scrolling, the opposite way there and going through all the old stuff, I mean, that's probably going to be what I'll end up doing, is again, trying to appeal to those enthusiasts again, and I'll basically just give up on the car buyers. I'll go for used stuff, but it's going to be, enthusiast used stuff. But it's something that I'm going to just have to go and try and, do the nostalgia play, because that's really going to be all that probably the last card I'll have to play, if things really, get to that point. So we'll see what happens. It's probably, I mean, I honestly, even there's been some opportunities that have come up where I'm like, do I review this car? Because I know that this car is sitting at the port in Europe and cannot come into the States right now. Or I guess they just won't bring it into the States right now because they don't want to pay the tariffs. And so it's like, why am I going to review this stuff if literally no one can get it? I'm not doing reviews for Europeans. Unfortunately, I'd love to, but like they are a tiny fraction of my viewership. And so it's going to be interesting, but I'm already, because I plan a lot of my content out months in advance, and it's like, okay, I know this is not going to be on dealer lots when it's supposed to be. So I'm, there's some I'm gambling on because I'm hoping that, these things do get resolved and worked out. So some of the right opportunities I am going for, but a lot of them I have turned down, and I'm going to continue to do that. Especially because, again, I don't want to fly as much. There's that crap at Newark this week. I don't know if you guys saw, of flight controllers walking off the job because their systems are terrible and they're being treated terribly. And they're like, do not fly in or out of Newark Airport. And it's like, I am definitely like trying to avoid flying as much as possible, which is why I'm going to Louisville this week. I could have flown there. I'm driving. It's only like 6 hours. And I actually have an Escalade with Super Cruise press car that I will be super cruising the entire way. It's going to be actually my longest test of Super Cruise. So I'm very excited for that. It's going to be like 12 hours behind the wheel, Super Cruise on the highway over this week here. But I'm like, that's what I'm doing. Any of these things, if it's within reasonable driving distance, I'm like, can I get a Blue Cruise or can I get a Super Cruise car? And let me just sit back and watch the highway go by. And at least I am firmly on the ground. I know cars are, statistically less safe than airplanes, but these days I'm not so sure with all the crap going on with the FAA. So anyway, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. See how it all plays out. So let me see here. I see Dan also says, I know someone who has an Abarth you can revisit. I would love to. I don't know, Dan, exactly where you're at. I don't recall. Apologies. But if you are remotely close, send me an email. Because like I said, I'm all for revisiting stuff. I honestly, and I guess people have said if you watch your old videos and you don't cringe, then you haven't improved. So I guess cringing is good in some ways, but man, I go back and see some of my older reviews and I'm like, why did this ever even get views? Because I don't think some of them are very good, honestly. So I also kind of want to do a better video in a lot of ways for some of these vehicles. So that's another reason why I want to revisit stuff. So it's just fun as well. Okay, North Carolina, you say, Dan. A little bit of a hike. And I do have a lot of cars still waiting for me that were even closer that I want to review someday. A bunch of JDM legends that I have been wanting to do for years and stuff. So, but send me an email still. I will add it to my list. And again, if it really comes down to just doing used stuff, then I'll probably be able to make more progress on chipping away at that list of privately owned vehicles and start meeting up with more of you and reviewing your cars. And obviously there's a limit there. I'm not gonna be able to drive to Arizona or something, but at least stuff within a day's drive, I'll probably slowly work my way outwards from Pittsburgh in a radius and try and do more and more of those if that, is the way things end up going. And also, I think, Kyle, thank you so much for gifting 5 more memberships. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for your generosity. And happy to see, again, some new faces there, and I think some familiar ones as well. So thank you so much, Kyle, for your generosity. Really appreciate it. And let me see here. Where were we? So Michelle says ID buzzes are popping up in my area too. I see a few every week. Love seeing them around. Okay, sweet. I'm so happy. This is just a weirdly odd Pittsburgh phenomenon of no one buying ID buzzes. I'm glad they're popping up. This is great. Okay, thank you everyone for calming me down on the ID buzz sales crisis here. Blackdale says, I watched your E46 M3 review again. By the way, can you compare E46 M3 with the 04 STI you reviewed? Both give me Need for Speed vibes. I'm glad you enjoyed that one. As far as comparing them, I mean, obviously they're completely different cars, versus, one being rear-wheel drive, one all-wheel drive, 6-cylinder, 4-cylinder, all that. They're both very fun. I think, I'm also still a little bit biased. There is still the faint beating heart of Super Dorks fans still within me that, I like the STI better. It's just, the STI just has a little bit more character, I'd say, just with, again, the peakier nature of those motors, the huge wing. The 04 especially, that first year had the intercooler sprayer, which was so cool. At that point, I was, like 13, 14-year-old, like being like, oh man, like I can hit a button and spray water on my intercooler. And just, I don't know, there's just a lot of really fun touches with the STIs. I would go for that. I mean, as far as other comparison things, I'd say honestly the E46 might be slightly more reliable than the STI. I mean, if an STI is stock, it can be reliable, but that EJ motor is just a nightmare when you start doing mods to them. So, but also an old E46 M3 has their own problems to deal with. So, yeah. Both cars are a little problematic, in my opinion, but both cars are very fun, very iconic cars. Obviously, again, the Need for Speed connection, all those kinds of things. Really, really fun. They all sound great in their own way. It comes down to personal preference and all that. Both really, really fun cars, really nice. Obviously, nicer interior in the M3. It's not all cheap Mattel plastic like you get in the Subaru, but both are just very, very fun cars. Very, very worth a test drive at some point if you can, get behind the wheel of one. They're fun. Let me see. Michelle says, non-car related, I finally bought my first Mac today, the M4 MacBook Pro 14-inch. What a machine. Can't believe I was on Windows for so long. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, I just have the M1 Mac Pro. I actually have the 14-inch as well. And it's really the perfect size for airplanes. It's really great as far as, just a giant leap forward with the M series chips, from Apple. And I'm glad you're enjoying it. Congrats on the new computer, and I hope it treats you well. I mean, mine is going on. I mean, I bought it as a refurb right before the M2s came out. So I guess at this point it's going on almost 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. I've had it. And it's fantastic. Still, knock on wood, is rock solid. Still plenty fast enough for me, and all the editing I do, editing 4K videos and stuff for the weekly updates, no problem. And it's been really good. TFI says the 5-cylinder is surprisingly stout. RS3 is worth it over the S3 if you want the RS3 experience for half the price. Buy a Volvo S60 T5. That's a fun way to go about it as well. Or if you're brave, buy used RS3 because they've had that motor for quite a while now, and there's some deals on those, and I think those will appreciate. So that's probably a pretty solid buy. I mean, you got old German vehicle, buyer beware, but if you're okay with the electrical gremlins and stuff, I think that could be a fun one for sure. And he says, yeah, the pre-2015 and a half, right? And Dan says, when are we getting the review of the little red car in the garage? Yeah, so I posted a picture, if you remember, of all the members got a picture of the sweet convertible that's in the garage right now, the press car, and the my daughter's little push car that's there. But yeah, no review of that. But that thing, like I said, pops some serious wheelies, and yeah, we gotta get rid of some of those in the garage because she doesn't even fit half of them anymore. We have a bunch of those little, kitty car things we gotta get rid of because she's just biking and all that, and it's crazy how time flies. But yeah, got a bunch of clutter in the garage, but thankfully, at least I am proud of myself that I have retained 2 spots in our 2-car garage, and I haven't allowed the garage to get overtaken by junk. And let me see. Linda says, my sister bought a new Prius and sold her old Prius to her sister. Everyone is happy. Nice. Yeah, Priuses will run forever, so that's always nice when you can hand them down. And Quick Landscaping says, have you ever driven a 90s Corvette 32 valve 01? I have not. I had someone offer me one a long time ago. I just never got around to reviewing it. But yeah, that's the Lotus engineered one and all that. Yeah, really cool stuff. I'd love to review one of those someday, but have never reviewed one now. And let me see. So Austin says you can review my Barn if you're ever in Cali, Matt. I appreciate the offer. Thanks for that, Austin. And he says I saw 190 Buzz in SoCal the other day. Nice. So I'm glad you saw one. That's awesome. And Ben says nice review on the tracks. 22 grand for any new vehicle is a good value if you're unwilling to shop the used market, right? And I think for a lot of people, just again that new car interest rate is also a nice savings. Because used is always just so much higher. So that's why it's good that we have these affordable new cars for sure. And I'm glad you liked it. Yeah, like I said, it's that video bombed more than I thought it would. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it, and hopefully that one does get picked up by the algorithm at some point. And OG Skywalker says, what's your opinion on the Ionic cafes? I don't know anything about them. So I haven't seen any around. Maybe you guys have started to see. I know they're starting to have chargers pop up. I have not seen the charger in the Pittsburgh area here. And I don't know anything about the cafe component, but I think, that whole idea is very much the way things are going to go in the future. I think not like you really need a cafe, because if you're future-proofing yourself, EV technology is going to advance fast enough that, by the time we're into the 2030s, charge speed's going to be, not really much of a problem, I think, to the point of needing a cafe to sit around and hang out at for, an hour or something. But I think for right now, that is certainly a smart thing. And, I think that really the bottom line of what's really important, I think, for these new charging spaces is having them have a cover over them, having them be lit, and having an attendant there. Like a gas station. There's a reason why things have been the way they have for the past 100 years. From a safety standpoint, from a assistance standpoint, if someone's struggling with a pump or a charger, same kind of thing. And I think that they're starting to figure out that's what they need to do. I think also like Walmart just, the past week or two here has been saying more about how they're putting in like thousands of chargers here for the next few years. And that they think it's actually like a huge money-making thing and like a really big thing they're excited about. And it's, and this is really good to hear all this kind of stuff, these Ionic cafes and all this other stuff, because again, even without the federal funding, it's like, we're still, the federal funding gave us a nice little push in the beginning there, but like, we can do it without it. And, you're seeing companies that say like, hey, we can make money on this. There is demand for this stuff, as much as you might hear to the contrary from whatever EV hater wants to, say their piece. But, Walmart, again, they're putting up thousands of chargers, not because they're trying to, sit here and virtue signal or anything. Like, they're doing it because they actually are like, we're going to make money on this. Someone's going to do it, and someone needs to charge these EVs. And so whoever's willing to make the investments and do these things the right way, like the Ionic cafes and stuff, I think that's, they're going to be the ones that benefit. And, all the traditional gas companies are going to be left in the dust because they're not innovating. Shell has a few little chargers at some of their stations, but, they kind of, it seems like they've given up on that push. It seems like no one else is really doing anything. So, that's why we have these other companies doing it instead. And they're going to be, Electrify America will be the new Shell, and you'll have EVgo be the new BP. And that's, I think the way things are going to go in the distant future here. TFI says, my dad asked me about the Ford Explorer ST. He zeroed in on that because it's an ICE 3-row SUV for 70 grand Canadian with a 0 to 60 around 5 seconds. We don't have EV rebates in Canada anymore. Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, I love Explorer ST. I just did a review of one a couple of weeks ago, and it's a really fun vehicle. It really impressed me more than I thought it would, and they made some nice improvements to the refinement of the interior so that it doesn't feel as cheap as it did before. So I really like the 25s especially, and it's a really, really nice cruiser. Again, having Blue Cruise is a game changer if you do a lot of highway driving. It's that's alone kind of puts it over a lot of competitors if you can afford, the price tag of it. So that's I think that's a good choice. You can watch the review for all of my thoughts on all the competitors and all that. But I think Explorer STs are great. And Dan says, are you guys having extreme tire wear issues on the Mach-E? Got a buddy who's running through tires like crazy. So yeah, that was the end of last year. We did our update on the Mach-E. We do have new tires on it now. We have the Bridgestone Turanza EV tire, because the Michelin Primacy, I think it's a Michelin Primacy on there. That was the original factory tire. I mean, we had to replace it at 15,000 miles. They were down to like 5:30 seconds to go into 4:30 seconds. I'm like, we're going into the winter. I'm not gonna be, on low tread. So, thankfully, Bridgestone hooked us up, and I'll be doing another update here on how those have held up, because that's gonna be, the real deciding factor is, like, this is an EV specific engineered tire. Is it going to hold up better than these regular tires, like the tires that were initially on the Mach-E, with that extra weight and the wear and tear of that? Because it sucks that the tire thing is at least initially wasn't very well sorted out here. And now we're seeing they're trying to crunch EV buyers with the higher registration fees. That's not great either. So there's all these things. It was like previously you save money because you don't buy gas, you don't have oil changes, and that still is, I think, a huge savings. Just not buying gas and charging at home, if you can do that, is a huge savings. But it's chipping away at that savings a little bit with now maybe you have to replace tires a lot more frequently, and now you got to pay 4 times as much to register your EV versus your gas car or whatever. And there's all these other things that are, increasing the ownership costs there. Whenever it used to be so nice to have basically no ownership costs in an EV. But yeah, so definitely go watch the video from back at the end of last year that we have a playlist on the Mach-E if you missed that one, as far as that. Now, these tires so far, I mean, we've only put 2,500 miles on them or so. They seem, great so far. I definitely appreciate there's a real handling improvement, so much better grip on these Bridgestones versus those old Michelin. So that's a nice improvement. And otherwise they seem to have the same kind of quietness, same kind of everything else, very comparable, just with better grip and hopefully with better wear. We will see. But time will tell. That's be, like I said, doing another update here on the Mach-E this year, and then I'll do another one next year before we either get rid of it or buy it out. I'll do an update on that whole process and stuff next year. But hopefully these tires last a little bit longer. We'll see. Sorry to hear about your buddy going through them super fast too. It seems like it's hit or miss. I mean, the Mach-E form, I looked this up. There's some people who are like, oh no, I got 40,000 miles out of my tires. I don't know, you guys are crazy. And there's other people that are like, oh yeah, 15,000 miles and they're shot. So it's so weird how it's one extreme or the other. I don't know if these people are exclusively highway driving to get 40,000 miles out of these tires or what. But for us, it was very short. TFI says, I drove a Grand Cherokee SRT back in the day. Steering might be too heavy for a 70-year-old, but it definitely rips. Those are fantastic. Yeah. As far as a competitor to the Explorer ST, the Grand Cherokee's fun. If you wanted 3 rows, there's Durango. Unfortunately, Durango doesn't have the 6.4 this year. So you got to go to either 5.7 or the V6. Both are going to be slower than the Explorer ST, but if you want a V8, that's a fun option as well. Just it's really dated, at this point, really for the Durangos, but another option too. And Vishal says, I saw some more posts on Reddit of people's Accord wheels getting stolen this week. It's crazy how much of a problem it is. That's so weird. And like, I always wonder with like peaks in theft like that, like, don't you think they saturate the black market with like wheels? Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe they just ship them all overseas, and maybe there's an endless demand for Accord wheels. But I feel like you run out of people being like, oh yeah, sure, I'll buy some stolen Accord wheels. I don't know. I don't know how any of that world works, but yeah, it seems really strange. But sorry to hear that there's that issue, and hopefully everyone's Accord can keep their wheels. I think now is a good time to invest in wheel locks. If you have an Accord, apparently your wheels are very sought after. Get some wheel locks, and hopefully that prevents the problem. I think wheel locks, especially if you street park or you're parking outside all the time and you're worried about theft in your area in any way, you got to do wheel locks. Not the prettiest, but you'll be happy you have them, I'm sure. And let me see. Sport wheels, interesting. And Dan says, as a previous owner of the Focus and Fiesta ST, I hate the SUV STs. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, I said this in my review. They should have just called it the Sport, because it doesn't handle that great. And I mean, it's fine, and it's, I'd say, better than a Durango slightly, but like, just why the ST badge? I mean, the Edge ST was even worse, I think. I never even reviewed one, but just the stuff I saw about it was just the transmission was slow. It wasn't sporty. They just really devalued the ST badge here. And again, they didn't have to. They had Edge Sport. They had Explorer Sport. There's nothing wrong with that. Sport Fit, everyone understood that's the sportier one, it's the faster one. Why use ST? There's some real weird branding stuff going on at Ford in the past 10 years here. I don't understand it. But yeah, that's their company. They play how they want. Anyway, OG says, comparing apples and oranges, Dan, Explorer STs are awesome for enthusiasts looking for a big, fun family hauler. They're faster also. As far as, I mean, it is a great car. Just again, I would immediately, if I had an Explorer ST, I'd debadge it. And I would like try and disown the ST thing personally, because it's just, I remember, all the actual STs and how fun they were. I see he says maybe the leftover ST emblems had to go somewhere. Yep, they gotta maximize their I guess supplier or whatever. And let me see. Austin says Ford should have called Maverick Lobo the Maverick ST. You're right. That's the one that they. If you're gonna use the ST badge on something that's not a hatchback, I could have seen them say Maverick ST, and I'd say, okay, well, you got the better diff in the back. It's actually slammed. It's actually focused on handling. Okay, I would accept Maverick ST. But then, Lobo. Like, what's the idea about that? I don't know. Again, Ford, can't figure it out sometimes. I will be on a Ford event soon, so maybe I can. If I have one too many drinks and I feel a little feisty, maybe I'll ask one of the Ford executives what's going on with the naming. But let me see. TFI says Hondas and Chop Shops go together like PB and jelly. That's true. OG says Sport associated with lower trims. Okay, I guess that's a decent point. It used to not be, though. But I guess, now with Bronco Sport, which was also a bad choice in my opinion, but confusing everything with the Sport, I guess, now they can't go back, so they're stuck with it. But if they hadn't gone down that road, because, Bronco Sport came after Explorer ST, they could have, again, said Explorer Sport means actually sport, and then you have Bronco, and then you have, something else for what the Bronco Sport. They could have called that, I don't even know. If someone who's more familiar with Ford's SUV history than me, even just what do they call? I mean, I guess they could call it the Bronco too. I don't know. Maybe there weren't any other great alternatives if they were going for historical stuff, but you can always have a new name as well. Anyway. Let me see. TFI says, if I see a B18 or H22 in a car that shouldn't have it, I get suspicious. That's funny. And Dan says, I love the Maverick ST idea. The logo thing is so confusing. Tell them. All right. Well, I'll see. I'll see how and who I even end up talking with here whenever I do this Ford event. But yeah. I will see if I can get any kind of answers. It's always, pretty much the standard PR line for anything like that. But yeah, TFI says someone at the press event buy a round for Matt so you can share his unfiltered thoughts, right? Yeah, I mean, it's always an interesting thing with some of these things because you already know the answer they're going to give you for a lot of these things. Whenever, even when they're right in front of you, even a few drinks in, it's always going to be like, we don't talk future product. We're not gonna, and you don't want to like spoil the mood of the night by like being the guy that's always like, wow, what about this? And like, you want to keep things pleasant. So that's why I often have burning questions that I don't bring up, because it's like, I don't want to, trying to think of a better way to put this, but I don't want to just be that guy. So, but yeah, I sometimes I do get in a little, jab or a little question to try and, see if I can get anything out of them. And it usually goes nowhere, but, I will try my luck with Ford and see what happens. And Ben says, in light of your coverage of the Ferrari 296 Speciale, do you think Ferraris of the last 10 years still have that it factor, or are they a little generic? I mean, I think that they're still doing their thing. It's, like the Speciale is the same formula we had for the 8 Speciale and, all the other stuff since, of giving people a lighter, more track focused version of that car. So I still think they're doing the same thing they always have. And whether people are burned out on that or not is another question. I think obviously there is some of that, but I think, judging by Ferrari's order books and the prices these things are going for, as far as their actual buyer base goes, they are absolutely still having the it factor, and their it factor is more of an it factor than ever, based on, again, the sales that they've been having. So yeah, obviously us out in, all of us people that aren't multimillionaires, it doesn't matter what we think because it's not for us, and it's irrelevant what we think, unfortunately. So yeah, but I think that they are absolutely at least doing the right thing to their buyer, as far as their buyers are concerned. Dan says, I just always associate ST with the cars that handle well and fun, not straight line speed. Yep, right there with you. OG says, let's complain about names getting tarnished like Trailblazer, RSX, Mustang. Oh, I know. There are so many. RSX I talked about this in the weekly update, back when that was announced, but that is another, like, anything else. I mean, again, you want to go back, they're starting to introduce real names, or they said, I think they were with the Integra, like, why not call it the Legend? Why not call it anything else? Vigor even could have been one. What was the other ones they had back then? That were cool. There was a bunch of good stuff, and it's just like, or anything. I mean, paste the alphabet up on the wall and throw the darts during the next Acura Christmas party and come up with names that way if you need to, instead of picking RSX, a small sport compact, and, putting that on that thing. I just, maybe I'm jaded. I don't know. Let me know if I just sound like I'm some grumpy old man now or something, but it's just like, why? Like, please have a little creativity instead of always going back to the well for all your ideas. Like someone just told me, I was with a family event here this week, and someone told me they're doing another season of Breaking Bad. And I'm like, do these executives have no originality? I mean, if you're a fan of it, I'm sure you're excited, and I'm not throwing any shade against, that, but just like, it's just astounding how it's like, we got to just keep rehashing and doing the same thing over and over again instead of new stuff. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think especially with Hollywood, they're just in panic mode and they don't know what to do. And again, these executives had it easy for so long, and now they have to have a little bit of creativity for the first time in a while. And it's like, what do we do? Oh, let's just, just rehash all the old stuff again, do another sequel. Dan says, I'm in. Apparently it's only another season. And apparently everyone is returning, which not giving any spoilers because I actually haven't watched it, believe it or not. But apparently everyone's coming back, and apparently that shouldn't be possible based on the way things ended. So I don't know. Yeah, I could be completely wrong on that too. I just heard that through the grapevine. Maybe that's just an unfounded rumor or something. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, it's just it's annoying. Dan says I'm gonna sneak in and make sure everyone is plastered for the Ford event. Well, yeah. The problem is a lot of these events, a lot of people just go to bed pretty quickly and they don't stay up for the drinking and all that often is happening after the dinners there. A lot of people have been flying all day and stuff, so a lot of the executives don't have the opportunity to to get plastered. I feel like things are a little different than they used to be as well. Like I can remember in my early days of doing the media drives, like car company executives like buying us all around like shots of tequila, and we're all just like going ham in the bar like afterwards. And like I feel like there's less of that now. It's more reserved, and it's more like, okay, we'll have a couple of cocktails and then go to bed or whatever. But I feel like it used to be a little wilder. Maybe it is, and maybe I'm just going to bed earlier and I'm missing out on all the fun. I don't know, but yeah, I feel like it used to be a little bit more. Maybe we were all just younger as well and had more energy. I don't know, but it's just kind of funny. And let me see. Austin says, tell them to lower the price of Mustangs and not phone in the next generation while you're at it. Yeah, don't get me started on the Mustang. I mean, they got to be feeling it with the low sales of the 2025s here. This S650 is not doing well. And we'll see what they do. I mean, I don't know if they're going to have the budget to do a faster redo. I think they were kind of hoping with Camaro going away and no more V8 Charger and Challenger that they were going to be able to just like coast. I think they truly engineered S650 just to coast. They knew that they had the whole market to themselves and that they could just phone it in and they'd be fine. And it turns out that's not enough for enthusiasts. They know when you phone it in. They can smell that coming from a mile away, and they don't go for it in many cases. So I think Ford knows. Again, yeah, I'm just recently now getting in with Ford. I mean, I always am honest about where reviews goes, but whenever it comes to like the social events and poking people in the eye, I mean that might be a little bit of a farther leap to take, but we'll see. But yeah, anything's possible. We'll see how the conversations go here when I go on that event. But let me see. B Mitchell says, oh God, Ford won't go back to Bronco 2. Their legal team is still butthurt over that fiasco 35 years ago. You'll see Pinto come back at the same time. I mean, Pinto maybe, because I mean Maverick didn't have a prestigious record, I don't think, really, and it still came back. So Pinto, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe they let people age out a little bit more so that everyone completely forgets about the past Pinto before that makes a return. But yeah, I think it's certainly in the cards. Maybe in another 5 or 10 years, who knows? But let me see. I see Dan agrees about the names there. And TFI says, speaking of Bronco, I discovered that the two-door version is only 12.5 centimeters longer than my Mark 7 Golf. Yeah, they're actually pretty nice and small for the Broncos. I actually saw a really nice two-door Bronco today that had some KO2s and some nice new wheels on it and stuff. And I think it's a really cool thing. I think if I needed something rugged like that, I actually really like the Bronco. It'd be one I'd certainly take it over a Wrangler myself. And CTFI also says if it being a two-door SUV plus a manual makes it very tempting, especially if my dad's already at the Ford dealer looking at Explorers. And there's probably pretty good deals on, especially the two-door Broncos right now as well. And yeah, the manual's cool. It's probably really rare. So, don't expect to waltz in and easily find a manual Bronco. You're probably gonna have to hunt and probably do a road trip for something like that, possibly. But probably worth the hassle just to again have a really rare one. Probably will hold its value better, I'm thinking as well, but who knows. And Linda, thank you so much for a super chat. She says folks prefer the S550. The big screens were a mistake. I think there's some of that as well. I think a lot of people don't like that new interior. I mean, obviously I'm one of them. I think I don't like it as well. And I think a lot of us, I mean, you can go watch the S650 reviews. That's like everyone's complaining about that in the comments as well. So, yeah, but it's, I mean, with that, it's hard to say what the right approach was there. Because I feel like in one aspect they have to keep up with the times, and you look at like Charger EV does have, an even bigger screen than the Mustang. So I think, there was a way to do it, but probably a way to do it better. I think it could have even, taken S550's dash, kept the screen, or kept the screen, at a pretty large size, maybe a little bit of a smaller size, but just put it, lower under the air vents and allow them to still do the double brow thing properly, and have more of those historical ties while still having a big screen, but have it low and out of the way so it's not the dominating factor. I think, they could have still done it in a better way. And maybe they will redesign the interior. We're seeing the C8 Corvette kind of get a surprising interior refresh here that it's going to have, I think, for the 2026 model year, because a lot of people complain about the wall, in the middle there, which my favorite quote about that wall in the C8 Corvette, I think Elena, I can't remember her last name, Cher or something. She's a writer for Car and Driver. And I think her quote on that was that the C8 Corvette interior is perfect for divorcing couples, because it's like this giant wall in the middle of the C8. It is like, I think it's gonna be a nice improvement to have the new interior in the C8. And so I think you could see Mustang maybe do that if they're hearing from everyone, like, okay, people don't mind the exterior styling, but the interior is a big problem. So maybe we, do something there to work around that. Maybe they will. It's hard to say what they go with, because they're putting that 13.2-inch screen they have in everything. The Explorer's got it. Mustang has it. The Maverick's got it. Everything. I don't know. They must have just had some killer deal from the supplier to say 13.2-inch screen and everything. And they said, okay. And that's what they did. So I don't know how long it's going to take to get out of that agreement, if they even wanted to. But, there's like, what do? You can't go backwards to the 8-inch screen, because they've, again, opened that Pandora's box now. So I don't know how they do it, but I think, again, just putting it lower and integrating it better is at least going to be a little bit of an improvement. We'll see what they do, or if they do anything at all. They might still just, Ford oftentimes likes to just think like, they made the right choice. They stick to their guns, and, they don't back down. So maybe they'll just hope that people get used to it and keep on going into it. I don't know. But I hope Mustang does well, because I don't want to see Mustang go away. But if it's selling less than the Mach-E and it's, struggling, it's, not a good sign if it's struggling with no competition. And we haven't even hit like the price crunch of tariffs yet. We haven't hit the crunch of supply yet, which are all coming, but we're not even hitting that yet. And it's already struggling. So once it actually gets to be a hard road, it's not going to be good for Mustang either. And especially, the biggest thing to look out for with Mustang is that's built in Flat Rock. And that's great, because that means, Mustang is pretty well insulated from tariffs. But what that means is that is a very valuable factory. And it used to make the Continental, and there's probably some extra space there. So they will probably add a second model to Flat Rock as soon as humanly possible, just because, again, any factory in the States is, going to be stuffed to the max here for the next 4 years. But I'm worried that they move Mustang production somewhere else. But that would really probably sink it even more if they shipped it up to Canada or Mexico or something, or anywhere else. But I just really have to wonder what their accountants are going to be saying if Mustang sells hardly anything and they are occupying a prime real estate factory. That's... I'm worried for Mustang, honestly, if sales keep going the way they are. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. And Ford Enthusiast, thank you so much for being a member for 7 months now. I really appreciate that. He says, hey, Matt, joining a bit late. Hope all is well. I bought a Bronco Sport Badlands Sasquatch, and I will have it tomorrow. Super excited. Well, congrats. That's always exciting to get a new car. And that's going to be a lot of fun. Those things are very, very fun little vehicles. I always like the Bronco Sport. Even with, I think the name, I wish they would have, done something different, but I love the styling. I think it's, super capable little vehicle. And yeah, I'm probably gonna do the refresh version here at some point this year. I'm guessing once they start going out to the media fleets there. But yeah, I think it's great. It's really, I think it sold super well in the early years, and I feel like they kind of slowed down recently. But I think maybe the refresh will help kind of reinvigorate them a little bit. But yeah, Bronco Sport's great. So congrats on having one here, and hope you enjoy it for a long time to come. And yeah, you really got the Sasquatch version. That's the new one that has like the little grill guard and everything, right? Where it's really loaded up there. So I hope you enjoy your adventures, whatever you end up doing with it as well. And yeah, congrats on that. That's awesome. And let me see here. See, Corey's stopping by. Thanks for stopping by, Corey. And Dan says he's in for the new Breaking Bad. Says I should watch it. Yeah, I'll get around to it at some point, probably. And Omar says, Matt, with the upcoming mid-engine Mustang, do you think Chevy will respond with a mid-engine Camaro as well? I hope so. I'm not sure what mid-engine Mustang you're talking about. I haven't heard anything about that or any kind of. Yeah, I really question that. If you have a source, I'd love to check it out. But yeah, I don't envision them ever doing a mid-engine Mustang. I think trying to chase Corvette would be silly. And I think if they did do a mid-engine Mustang, you wouldn't see Camaro come back because they already have Corvette, which would be the competitor. And I don't think there's any way they would make a mid-engine Mustang that's any cheaper than a C8 Corvette. So yeah, I think that's probably not going to happen. Again, that'd be fun if I was wrong. I would definitely look into it and see, but I'm pretty sure that's probably not a thing. There is, the GTD version, but that is still front engined. Has a very cool suspension, but still front engine. So, and GT500 is coming. I think that's going to stick to the regular formula. So I don't envision anything crazy happening there. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting rumor. TFI says, I got to finish Better Call Saul. Love seeing the early/mid 2000s cars. One guy has an Evo 8. That's cool. Yeah, I never saw Better Call Saul either. See, TFI is talking about the topic of Ford ruining classic names, the Ford Capri. Yeah, I know. Another one. Although even, like I said, the weekly update this past week, Ford thinks that partnership with Volkswagen has been very, very, very successful. 3 varies in the statement there. But I think someone said that Explorer EV sells really well in certain parts of Europe, but Capri seems like it hasn't been a hot seller. So I don't know if the nostalgia thing's finally reaching the end there for them with bringing back names on stuff that shouldn't have those names. I don't know. But yeah. And let me see here. We are at the 2-hour mark, so I'm going to do the last few questions here and we'll wrap it up. So Dan says, for some reason, the 650 taillights look better on the S550. Interesting. I don't think I've seen anyone do a swap. But I love the 550 taillights. I think they're still my all-time favorite taillights. S650s are fine, but to me, S550 looks so much better, and especially the refreshed ones. I still love my dearly departed Bullet. That thing, I love the styling of that. And Trent Carguy says, having spent a little time with both the S550 and 650s, I prefer the S550 myself. Yeah, I mean, I think pretty much everybody does, honestly. Yeah, and S550 just had the iconic ones of, the GT350 that will never probably see again here. GT500 will come back, but I don't think we're going to see 350 and the Mach 1, the Bullet. I don't know if any of those are going to come back for this new generation. Dark Horse doesn't seem like it really made much of a blip, honestly, aside from the first few early adopters. But other than that, I think I've seen maybe one Dark Horse on the road ever. I've seen more Nissan Zs, which is I feel like saying something because there's a lot of Mustangs around here. Actually, I saw a Nissan Z, I think today or yesterday. So I'm starting to see those a little bit more, but have not seen, I think, a single Dark Horse on the roads. And TFI says, big touchscreens belong in an ordering kiosk at McDonald's. That's right. I agree. And OG says, would you own an EcoBoost Mustang? Love the Bronco Sport. Yeah, I had an EcoBoost Mustang, actually. That was my first Mustang back in 2014. And it was great. Honestly, I liked it better stock than I did once I did all the mods to it, because the tune just made it different with the character. and the exhaust I thought was actually pretty cool sounding. But yeah, that car, I mean, that was like kind of my foray into doing like a project car in a way. And it just didn't jive with my personality. But EcoBoosts are great. I absolutely, if you need something that gets better fuel economy or you can't jump up to the GT for whatever reason, EcoBoost is great. You save some money on insurance, save money on gas and all that. And the EcoBoost is still so much power, so good. Yeah, I think they're great. And let me see here. So ICTFI says had one back in the day. Personally, I'd take the bus. It too is a two-door turbocharged coupe. So I mean, yeah, I think turbocharged two-door coupe though is really cool. I really love mine. TFI says the rental car place I worked for had EcoBoost and GT. GT was an absolute riot. EcoBoost had the torque till it gets heat soaked. Yeah, if you push an EcoBoost for a while, there is a limit there with the heat soak for sure. But I think for the average daily driver kind of Mustang, it's perfect. And let me see. And Linda loves hers. And she also says, love the retro dash on the S550 and just about everything about it, except for the sound of the EcoBoost is great. Yeah, I agree. And I see Shane says he loved the Bullet as well. And Dan says, I think the GTD was Ford's idea of proving they don't need mid-engine. That's very true. I think you're right. With these lap records they're setting, they don't need it. Linda says, if you love curvy roads, buy the EcoBoost. That's another point. Yeah, the lighter weight of the EcoBoost certainly is a nice perk. It does handle better as a result, for sure. And Dan says they need to build a completely stripped down 5.0 Mustang interior-wise, supercharge it and call it the Terminator. Yeah, that'd be a good idea, especially if they're going back and harkening back to the 90s with the gauges and stuff you can get on the inside. Yeah, SVT would be fun to bring back. But yeah, Terminator would be cool. Mustang Terminator, even just doing that, and as a yeah, there's so many things that is also strange too. I mean, they teased a new RTR EcoBoost, and then we assume GT500 is coming back, but we're not. I feel like they did almost a special edition just about every year. I mean, we have like the 60 years edition, I guess, that they have here this year, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they're pushing regular Mustangs as much as they used to, with all that stuff. I don't know, but maybe they have more on the horizon. We'll see. And Shane says, it seemed that Aston Martin you tested recently was your favorite, judging by your laughter. Yeah, that was one of the highlights, and that was my first Aston press car, and that was a special experience. It was so fun, and hoping to get more Astons in the future. But yeah, that's gonna be one I'll never forget. And it was a ton of fun too. Again, the tail happy thing. I love that Aston refuses to go with all-wheel drive. They're sticking to rear-wheel drive. It's choosing to be slower than a Turbo S 911, even if it's losing comparison tests. It doesn't matter. It's about the fun and that tail happy antic that it has. Absolutely, I'd take it over 911 Turbo and all day, every day. Love the Vantage. TFI says, imagine SVT makes a Terminator Cobra and it beats the GTD on the Nürburgring. That'd be funny. Yeah, I hope they do some kind of fun, nostalgic trim package at some point. But anyway, yeah, so we are past the 2-hour mark here. So I'm going to sign off here for tonight. But thank you so much, everyone, for stopping by and for the great conversation tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And enjoy the stuff coming up this week. I'm going to be doing another speaking of interesting names on vehicles, you'll see, and you already know this if you saw the member schedule and you're a member, but another very interestingly named vehicle I'll be posting up here tomorrow. So stay tuned for all that. But yeah, thank you all so much. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Take care and have a great week.